President Buhari reacts to election victory, grateful to Nigerians for another opportunity to serve.
PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar at a press briefing rejects election results.
African leaders congratulate President Buhari, Niger, Ghana and Senegal amongst early callers.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall take a look at the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections, a post-mortem.
73 candidates and parties were on the ballot for the 2019 presidential elections. But then the widespread impression was that it was a two-horse contest, and as some projected, it was also a time to separate the contenders from the pretenders.
And yes, indeed, Kingsley, the political terrain, despite the huge welcome to new entrants, Vega and other big names show up, it was glaringly pointing to a two-lane sprint game for incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and former Vice President and People's Democratic Party's candidate Atiku Abubakar.
Well, some 2 or 3 other contestants also tried to pull their weight at some point. But then, last Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections actually threw up more than expected in terms of the outcomes. And of course, for the different actors, there were quite a number of surprises, particularly in the National Assembly elections.
And 5 days, absolutely, Kingsley, for our many countrymen and women, viewers alike, watching and waiting for the rescheduled day of election was worth the wait, as would a first-time mother traveling in the labor room.
Now, 5 days later, how would you rate the conduct of the first set of the elections in 2019? And in what ways did the various aspects of the preparations for the elections, from logistics, security and others, affect the 72.7 million eligible voters, at least based on those who collected their PVCs?
Kingsley, we also asked how did the voting patterns swing in the different parts of the country to upset the known establishment. Some of the results you already know. More lessons to pick, if you ask me.
Of course, there are many matters arising from the conduct and the results of last weekend's presidential and National Assembly elections. And our line of inquiry this morning will cut across several of those relevant issues, as we have done since the beginning of this week. But again, essentially, it will be like taking an appraisal of the polls that took place on the 23rd of this month. It's on that note I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Juma Yusuf. Good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria, broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. We are reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. As always, the complimentary part of the program shall be brought to you, including newspaper review, business, sports, foreign and entertainment news. This morning news is right now with Stella Inamiti. Hello, Stella.
Hello, Jume and Kingsley. Good morning, and here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari says he is deeply humbled and profoundly grateful to the millions of Nigerians for judging him worthy of continuing to serve as president of the country for the next 4 years. This was while declared winner by the Independent National Electoral Commission.
I do not have the words adequately to thank the millions of Nigerians who voted to re-elect me as your president for the next 4 years. I am deeply humbled. I would like to make a special appeal to my supporters not to gloat or humiliate the opposition. Victory is enough reward for your efforts.
President Muhammadu Buhari is reassuring Nigerians that moving the country to the next level is a task that must be done as his administration sustains efforts at delivering a better Nigeria Speaking shortly after receiving his certificate of return as president-elect from INEC, the Nigerian leader promised to engage all parties that have the best interests of the country at heart as he strives to maintain inclusivity in governance for nation building.
Now that the elections are over and a winner declared, we must all see it as a victory for Nigeria, our dear country. All Nigerians going forward must stand in brotherhood for a bright and fulfilling future.
Meanwhile, African leaders have identified with President Muhammadu Buhari on his re-election for the second term as Nigeria's president. Correspondent reports that Niger, Ghana and Senegal were the early callers. Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyama says the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari is what the nation truly deserves, as it will consolidate the nation's goodwill in the Committee of Nations. In a statement by Special Assistant on Media, Sarah Sander, the minister also said it was important that the president was re-elected in order to have 4 more years to complete what he has started. The minister further said it could have been a real travesty for the country had the results been otherwise, stating that clearly it would have taken the country back many years. The minister added that the nation has a rare opportunity to have a leader of impeccable integrity whom everybody identifies with a strong moral principles, noting that it was important that Nigerians buy into that. Speaking on the result of the presidential election from Enugu State, the minister said it was a departure from the past, which he said was an improvement. Stalwarts of the All Progressives Congress say the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari is the right tonic for the development of Nigeria's democracy. They were speaking to correspondent Salihu Abdullahi shortly after the announcement of the winner of Saturday's presidential election.
I think this is more like a referendum between the sitting president, who has worked over the past 3.5 years to reorientate Nigerians, to reorder our value system.
I believe that the next level, which Mr. President has promised Nigerians, will be a next level that will take Nigeria to the Committee of Nations.
Gubernatorial elections, the states, which we hope that and pray and we've worked hard that our party is as successful as we've been today.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has rejected the result of the February 23rd election declared by the Independent National Election Commission this Wednesday. He stated this position at a media briefing in Abuja.
Just my party, but also with the Nigerian people on next steps, which will be revealed to the public shortly.
As Nigerians continue to celebrate the victory of President Muhammadu Buhari in the just concluded presidential polls, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, could not help but join the winning train to the next level. Correspondent Ondas Ahmed reports that the SGF, Boss Mustafa, assured Nigerians that their loyalty and votes for President Muhammadu Buhari to the next level will be an all-inclusive governance for the betterment of all and sundry.
Nigeria have spoken through their votes and reconfirmed their faith and their trust in the person of President Muhammadu Buhari, having seen how he has led this country in the last nearing 4 years. And they have every reason to be grateful.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jume after this break.
Sore throat, it's often caused by bacteria and viruses. Feels like they're having a party. You need Strepsils. It soothes the pain, plus it fights the germs with 2 germ-killing actives. Double power in 1 lozenge. Bye-bye sore throat. Take Strepsils.
Mars Medical Mission, MMM, is offering free services on a wide range of medical issues. Take advantage of these offers, especially by availing yourself of the National Cancer Prevention Program, NCPP. You can do so by coming for our Wellness Wednesday program at 31 Bode Thomas Street, Surulere, Lagos, every Wednesday from 7 a.m. You also have the opportunity of seeing the specialist and getting expert opinion on any health issues that may have been bothering you. Are you preparing to get married to your sweetheart? Then we have a pre-marital health program that will help you ensure that you start your married life on a healthy footing. Very important health screening and counseling will be made available for you and your partner. You can avail yourself of this opportunity by attending our pre-wedding Wednesday program from 7 a.m. For inquiries, send a mail to info@pinkcruise.org or log on to www.pinkcruise.org or call 0805-633-4288. Mission Pink Cruise, taking wellness to all.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capful for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
If you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from Abuja. Nigerian traders celebrate Muhammadu Buhari's victory as they call for consolidated gains on the success story recorded in agriculture, plus oil prices rise as OPEC resists Trump pressure to ease supply cuts. Details on business news with Joy Uzo. Let's join Uzo.
A cross-section of Nigerian traders celebrated President Muhammadu Buhari's victory in the just concluded presidential and parliamentary elections. A rice dealer in the Gariki ultra-modern market, Abuja, Mrs. Miriam Manza, commended the success story recorded in agriculture in the first 4 years of this administration, saying it has no doubt made Nigeria, to among other benefits, the self-sufficient in rice cultivation. She, however, called for concerted efforts to reduce the cost of rice and total clampdown on rice importation to promote Nigeria's milling plans, create more jobs, and at the long run, see to exports of Nigeria's brand.
Anticipating that Nigeria should be patronizing more of our local rice. You can see it. It's looking fine, stone-free, fresh, fine. Unlike other rice that they used to bring it from abroad, sometimes even if they don't buy it, people don't really know that they used to chemicalize it, refine it. And that is the reason why you can see many people have a lot of one sickness or the other. But with this our local rice, you know, one, it is going to elevate poverty, giving many people opportunity, job opportunity. The challenge is about the price, because you can still see that some of the other rice they used to smuggle it in. If only we work on our border, things will be better.
In another development, oil prices rose on Wednesday after a report of declining U.S. crude portfolios, and as Producer Club, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, seemed to stick to its supply cuts despite pressure from the U.S. President Donald Trump. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were at $55.99 per barrel, up 49 cents from their last close. International Brent crude oil futures were $65.65 per barrel, up 44 cents from their last settlement. The United States crude oil stocks fell by 4.2 million barrels in the week to 444.3 million barrels, the American Petroleum Institute estimated in a weekly report earlier. And to stocks, the Nigerian Stock Exchange finished Wednesday's trading on a bearish note, depreciating by 0.71% to close at 32,244.24 basis points. Next is a graphic representation of the closing figures. With business news, I'm Joy Uzo.
All right, thank you very much, Joy, for the business news on Good Morning Nigeria. Next for us now, we'll take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atuebi, is in the studio. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Jume. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning,
Bayo,
Nigeria.
Good to see you. The
Thank
front
you.
pages couldn't possibly have any other story.
Of course.
Other than the former declaration. Yes, that's right. So let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. I just take the lead stories for each of the papers and then get over to Bayo to discuss them, of course, along with the stories that Jumai will also read. Daily Trust, lead story says, Buhari promises inclusive government. Atiku heads to court. With a rider, world leaders congratulate president. Details can be found on the front page with a jump to pages 5 and 15. And you can see the photograph there on the front page of Daily Trust showing the president-elect and his wife and the vice president-elect and his wife after they received their certificates of return yesterday from the chief electoral officer at the International Conference Center. And just above that, you have 2019 elections, voter turnout rises in 19 states. Now, Daily Sun newspaper has it as follows, one with an earpiece, mixed reactions greet Buhari's re-election. Jubilation in Abuja as governors and others salute president. Obasanjo keeps mum. Lead story says with a kicker, as INEC issues certificates of return, we are moving to next level. That's attributed to Buhari. But there's a rider to that, Atiku, our mandate stolen. And you see the photographs there, the photograph there of the president-elect and vice president-elect. For the Punch newspaper says with a kicker, Atiku, I've never seen our democracy so debased as it was on Saturday. With a rider, we won't recognize Buhari as president beyond May 29th. That's opposition parties. Details can be found on page 2. But you see the photograph of the president-elect and his wife receiving the certificate of return from the chief electoral officer. With the headline immediately below that, President dedicates victory to God and Nigerians unfolds agenda. Details can be found on page 2. And just below that, you have other headlines related to the presidential election results. ACF, that's Arewa Consultative Forum, hails Buhari's re-election, urges Atiku to accept defeat. And youths celebrating Buhari's victory attack policemen in Lagos. That's pages 4 and 5. Going to tribunal, not right decision, Agbakoba tells Atiku. Details on page 7. Jumai?
And the leadership newspaper has, as the headlines, my re-election victory for all Nigerians, PMB. That's President Muhammadu Buhari. With a rider, asks supporters not to deride opposition. Poll grand theft of people's will, says Atiku. African leaders, UK, congratulate Buhari. Accept defeat in good faith. Agbakoba urges ex-VP. That's on page 4. And just below the headlines is all sector taps 218 billion illicit financial flows from Nigeria. With a rider, Dangote ranked 64th world's richest man. That's on page 29. And appeal court reserves judgment in Inogen's case. That's on page 12. EFCC arraigns 19 for illegal oil deal. That's on page 12. Rivers APC seeks justice for victims of poll violence. On page 34. African telecom revenues to hit $68 billion. That's on page 27. Court rejects the Suki's request for indefinite adjournment. That's on page 13. And the Nigerian Pilot newspaper says, just below the masthead, DSS releases Buba Galadima after 3 days in captivity. That's on page 6. Election Observer's Situation Room raises eyebrow over 1 million void votes. That's on page 8. And the bold headline says, my election free and fair. Buhari Auto Rider, as INEC presents certificate of return to president-elect. Vice says Vice says his victory is victory for Nigeria, condemns violence and killings in Sokoto and Kaduna. I will be heading to court to recover my mandate, Atiku Abubakar. And the picture message there, as usual, President Muhammadu Buhari and wife Aisha, Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo and wife Dolapo, shortly after receiving certificate of return from INEC chairman in Abuja yesterday. Observers say 25 Nigerians died during last Saturday's elections. That's on page 13. And below them, at the bottom plate of the Nigerian pilot, Kano never inflated figures for Buhari, says Governor Kanduje. That's on page 8. EFCC docks 19 men over illegal oil deal. That's on page 6. Appeal court reserves judgment on Onogens 4 cases. On page 5, post-election grievances adhere to peace accord, NLC. Governor Otum urges security agencies to curb Akume's excesses. And the Daily Independent, above the mastheads, Independent.
Yeah,
Don't go.
I think let's
okay.
buy your comment here so that.
Yes. Well, the latest news, of course, is that the Chief Electoral Officer of the Federation has presented a certificate of return to Vice President-elect and the President-elect yesterday. In the brief address, President reiterated his promise to tackle insecurity, improve the economy, and fight corruption more than ever. He commiserated with families who lost loved ones, and he said, elections is not a war and must not be a do-or-die affair. He congratulated all contestants for a hard-fight campaign, and he advised, he acknowledged the different views during campaign, but everybody had in common the love of our country, Nigeria, and the desire to improve our living conditions. He actually reiterated that now that a winner has been declared, we must see it to it that all our victory is a victory for Nigeria. In going forward, all must stand in brotherhood for a bright and fulfilling future. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party says the result of the election announced by INEC does not reflect the wishes of Nigerians and votes of the electorate. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar told a well-press conference yesterday he will reclaim what he described as his stolen mandate. He described the election as the worst in 30 years. He gave examples. He says, in Akwa Ibom, results show 62% drop in voter number. He called this a statistical impossibility. In another instance, he said, in Borno, where the numbers increased by 82% in spite of insecurity, he says the numbers declared by INEC do not add up. And he has declared, I, Atiku Abubakar, reject the result declared by INEC. I am conferring with my party and Nigerian people on the next step. In an earlier statement signed by him, he had actually indicated that he would not congratulate the president because the election was, to his mind, not free and fair, but marked by many irregularities. Meanwhile, there have been congratulatory messages to the President Muhammadu Buhari. The first came from President Muhammadu Isa of Niger and King Mohammed VI of the Kingdom of Morocco. Also, among those who have congratulated President is President Alpha Conde of Guinea, Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana, and Macky Sall of Senegal. Another paper indicated that there's been congratulatory messages from Kenya as well as South Africa. The United Kingdom government has also congratulated the president-elect. The United Kingdom Minister of State for Africa, Harriet Baldwin, said, in offering the gesture to commend Nigerians for resilience and commitment to democracy, he observed that the results declared by INEC were consistent with results obtained through civil society panels, voter tabulation processes, and therefore the UK is urging that we and our international partners believe Nigerian people can have confidence in the result.
Thank you, Brian.
Different strokes for different folks. Congratulations from across the country. The president is saying, well, a victor has emerged. Let's come together as brotherhood. And the People's Democratic Party says that they are challenging the outcome of the election in court.
Okay. Now we'll go to the daily.
Until they file their petition,
yes.
The presumption is that there is no matter in court, as it were, yes. With regard to the presidential election. But we do know that it is only the 2015 presidential election so far that has not been litigated since the Fourth Republic in 1999. And indeed, if you were to go back, the Second Republic, you know, it's the first election that has not been litigated.
Even for this election alone, INEC receives 600 cases, summonses, from ensuing for only primaries alone. And at the date of election, the INEC still had about 40 cases to contend with about this election.
Yes,
so you can imagine how contentious somehow the political terrain has always been.
That's right. Those cases you're referring to had to do with had and still have to do with pre-election
yes.
Pre-election matters. But the truth of the matter is that election litigation is a very complex matter, and the odds are heavily against the petitioner. Heavily against the petitioner. So
proof.
Yes, the burden of proof is onerous. Which is not to say that if you have a good case, you cannot win. We have seen cases,
of course,
by petitioners that they emerge triumphant, you know, and so that's not to discourage anybody who wishes to exercise.
But the good thing about it is that in our democracy, in the rule of law, that is the right path to tread. If you have disagreement, go to court.
And the president's admonition was also very timely. Look, you have won, as APC members, you have won, but do not gloat.
Yes.
And do not try also to humiliate the opposition. Otherwise, you could mess up the entire victory, as it were, you know, when people begin to then retaliate. We saw there were a few unsavory incidents in and around the suburbs of Abuja yesterday, particularly on the outskirts.
Even in Lagos?
Yeah, in Lagos, policemen were attacked. Yes, we can jubilate, we can celebrate, but as the president said, don't do that to him, because we're all Nigerians. At the end of the day, he's president for all of Nigerians, and not just for those, the numbers that elected him. He's won, and he's won.
Well, we have to thank Providence because at least we didn't have so many incidents of death coming from jubilation. In the past, jubilating after elections has cost a lot of life. Even ordinary football match, when Nigeria wins international tournament, people jubilating. Unfortunately, we have some of our compatriots being killed in that. So we have to be very careful.
And I think the president's speech really addressed the way people should go about celebrating and their utterances, especially on the social media.
In Yaba area yesterday, apart from the policemen that were attacked in another part of Lagos, I think that's Ojo, that's going towards Badagry. In Yaba area, it said somebody was shot dead in the course of the celebration. That's one of the stories that you have. And so let's return to the Punch newspaper. There of course, there are other headlines and other stories related. Above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, poll results. Stock market investors lose 170 billion naira in 2 days. Details can be found on page 29. 9th National Assembly to get 15 ex-governors as senators. That's on page 23. And 2 earpieces there, just beside the name flag. Debts exceed statutory revenues in 32 states, says FRC. That's the Financial Reporting Council. And UK congratulates Buhari, says election outcome fair. Details can be found on page 25.
And from the Daily Independent, above the masthead, says, don't go to court. Sage Agbakoba Momo tell Atiku. While I am challenging Buhari's victory, PDP candidate, that's on page 11. Buhari's re-election celebration, one shot dead, like Kingsley said, DCO attacked in Lagos, that's on page 11. Aliko Dangote, now 64th richest in the world, worth 16.6 billion, still #1 in Africa. Below the masthead is the headline, Saturday's polls, worst ever Atiku. Which a rider says it's a grand theft of the people's will. He is confident of victory, all hope not lost. Election free, fair and credible, Buhari insists. President Oshibajo gets certificates of return. And the picture message there says it all. The president receiving his certificate, electorate celebrating the elections, and Atiku Abubakar, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, right, and Bukola Saraki, Senate President, during a press conference by Abubakar Atiku, rejecting the presidential election results in Abuja on Wednesday. And federal government, states, local governments share 610.3 billion allocation in February. That's on page 43. Bayo.
Yeah, but Bayo, just take this along. I mean, you know, ahead of the election, you find all kinds of propositions, and usually it becomes an opportunity for hyperbolic projections. I will do this, I will do that. There is a story inside the Daily Trust newspaper. It's at page 13. Why I couldn't deliver 5 million votes to Buhari, this is according to Ganduje, the governor of Kano. And he says that, well, I told you because of the low turnout, that's why I couldn't deliver 5 million votes. Let's wait for the governorship election, which is coming up on the 9th of March.
Well, if you go by voter population, Kano has the highest voter population in the country.
Yes.
Of about 6.1 million or thereabout. And the expectation that he would deliver 5 million votes was probably an exaggeration. Because if you look at the voter turnout, voter turnout is quite considerably low. There is something many have overlooked. When you go for, people go for PVC, mostly not because of election, but because it has become a current element for identity in Nigeria, with the passport, with the national ID card. And it is easily accessible for most Nigerians because it is not as cumbersome, the process for it is not as cumbersome as for the national identity card. So everybody, every Nigerian has access, easy access to PVCs. And majority of the persons do not go for it because they actually want to go and vote. And I think a lot of voter education must have to be carried on by the political parties, by the National Orientation Agency and INEC in future, so as to increase voter turnout. By the time the 9th Senate resumes in early June, there will be 15 new governors. Among the new ones are those who won election, and some of them include Governor Amusun of Ogun State, Shetima of Borno State, Okorocha of Imo State, Gaidam of Yobe, Tanko Almukura of Nasarawa, and Aziz Yari of Zamfara. However, there are other former governors too who will be coming in: Oji Uzokalu, Theodore Oji, Ibrahim Shekarau, and others who are also winning a return. There are, however, some governors who will be vacating the Senate because they didn't win the election. They include George Akume, Bukola Saraki, and I think maybe Gospel Akpabio. Yes. So those are the turnout. Sadly, the president has reiterated that his administration will not tolerate the murder of innocent citizens. He was reacting to bandits that have killed people again in Sokoto, and as well as communal clashes that have resumed in Kajuru, in Kaduna State. He's met with the governor of Kaduna State, and I think he's given instructions that something strictly has to be done to stem that. The Minister of Information has advised that when the new governor in Kwara is sworn in on May 29, he should declare February 23rd every year as the Liberation Day for Kwara State. However, among the actions coming from Kwara, a voter, Mariam Mohammed, said, "I want to call on the winner, Oluriegbe, to be watchful. He should do well and always remember that what is constant in life is change. If he fails Kwarans, we will give him the same treatment."
Okay, Bayo, some shocking results there. And let's now go to the editorial of the New Telegraph with the title, "The Unacceptable Cost of Vote Delay." Says Nigerians may have turned out in their numbers to participate in last Saturday's rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections. But the huge cost incurred by the economy following the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC's postponement of the polls from February 16th to February 23rd is clearly an issue that should not be swept under the carpet. And let's just talk about it. We're running out of time.
Yes, actually, the editorial is happening on the fact that with an economy that is struggling to come out of recession, trying to stabilize, to have that additional cost that came from the rescheduled election is not acceptable. Therefore, the editorial commends the posture by President Muhammadu Buhari that circumstances leading to the postponement of the election shall be investigated. And it points out some of the consequences that as a result of the postponement, the National Assembly too had to put forward its resumption, thereby further delaying the passage of the budget for the 2019. Similarly, the Joint Administration Matriculation Board had to cancel its mock examination because it fell on the same day. And is already raising alarm, the editorial is raising alarm that we are hoping that the next date for the gubernatorial election and state assembly elections will not see any postponement, because if it moves, then it could also tamper with the next date for JAMB, which is scheduled for March 23rd or thereabout. In summary, the editorial is saying that the National Assembly and the executive should collaborate to ensure that measures are put in place to reduce the heavy cost of elections. It observed that around the world, Nigeria election has one of the highest, and something has to be done, particularly introducing electronic means. And they ask, sometimes people ask generally, if you could use your ATM anywhere around the country, why can't you use your PVC wherever you are? And this is a challenge for INEC. That is a challenge for INEC.
Identity management issues, no doubt about that. But in terms of cost of organizing elections, I think I've cited this example here.
Yes.
25 years ago, that was 1994, South Africa had its first non-racial elections. That's the first general election that ushered in democracy, and Mandela became president. On that occasion, because the voters' roll wasn't complete, you had persons who were of voting age at 18 who were allowed to vote, and voting extended for 4 days. The cost of organizing that election was huge. But 10 years later, in 2004, the cost of organizing the general election in South Africa was half of the cost of 1994. Half.
So they were able to progress and reduce costs astronomically. But in our own case, the cost
it keeps escalating.
Increasing.
Bye, Atoebe. Thank you for being with us. See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll bring in our guests to discuss matters arising from last weekend's elections.
I was a little girl. I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency cautions. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new Best Ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates,
Visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're having a post-mortem of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections. Let's take a look at this background report put together by Abdul Malik Adu.
The 2019 general election was another defining moment for Nigeria, owing to a 20-year success story of democratic rule since the transition of power from the military to civilian rule in 1999.
I, Olusegun Obasanjo, do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear.
With 73 candidates vying for the #1 seat, the election was adjudged by experts as the most contested in Nigerian's history. The two main candidates, President Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress (APC), was seeking re-election for a second-term bid in office with the slogan, "The Next Level," while Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) focused his campaign on "Let's get Nigeria working again." The election came with style and special clothing, commissioned and tailored in different party colors and traditional attire. But the shocker came when the electoral body postponed the much-anticipated general election less than 6 hours for Nigerians to head to the polls on February 16th.
The Commission came to the conclusion that proceeding with the election as scheduled is no longer feasible.
While the Independent National Electoral Commission craved the indulgence of Nigerians, saying the rescheduling of the election to February 23rd is to enable the Commission address some logistical challenges, stakeholders did not hide their displeasure as they continued to demand explanations. The flurry of reactions that trailed the sudden postponement of the presidential and National Assembly elections is no doubt a huge sign that its implication on election stakeholders is immeasurable. This resulted to different procedures to motivate and enable the electorate exercise their franchise. First was with the reduction of petroleum pump price and airfare to enable safe travels and to cast their ballot. In a preliminary report on the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections in Nigeria, the international observers described the conduct of the elections as free, fair, and credible, and an indication of non-interference by the government or any of its agents.
The ECOWAS observation mission considers the electoral process were largely peaceful and transparent, as voters were able to cast their votes freely.
However, some polling units experienced late arrival of voting materials and incidents of ballot box snatching and other forms of electoral malpractice. Worthy of mention is the professionalism displayed by the various security agencies in handling situations in areas that were hitherto known for election-related violence and other regions as a whole. With INEC's declaration of President Muhammadu Buhari of APC as the winner of presidential election with 15,191,847 votes to beat Atiku Abubakar of PDP with 11,262,978 votes.
Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress, having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared winner and is returned elected.
Experts and political watchers will take a critical look at the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, joining us on the studio now to discuss matters arising from last Saturday's election, we'd like to welcome once again Professor Abdullahi Shehu. He's a former Director General Intergovernmental Action Against Money Laundering in West Africa, that's GIABA, but he was also an observer in the course of the elections. Professor Shehu, pleasure to have you again.
Thank you, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, also here with us, another familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria is the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akomas. Dr. Akomas, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Okay. Do you mind?
And then we have the lady in the house, Lady Nkiru Selene Okoro. She's the Gender and Policy Analyst for Women's Situation Room Nigeria, powered by Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Are we going ladies first, case ladies morning?
Not necessarily, not necessarily, but usually so. But let's begin. I mean, for those who were very active on the field, Dr. Chris Akomas has a lot of political experience. And the last time we had him here, he was telling us about the consequences of the postponement of the election, that there was an experience of a candidate in the past, who had, on the eve of the election, distributed goodies, to the supporters, including goats, of course. By the time the elections were postponed, he went back to try to retrieve some of those goodies, and they told him that they had slaughtered the goat.
How is that possible?
Well, of course, quick, because they needed to do pepper soup and ngwagwo. Anyway, Dr. Chris Akomas, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Tell us something. What is your reading of the outcome of last weekend's elections, presidential and National Assembly?
Thank you. First, let me start by commending Nigerians for their patience and comportment, the way they conducted themselves, and more so, the INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, the headship of Professor Yakub Mahmoud, and the entire team to have been able to organize this, notwithstanding the initial hiccups and the postponement. We must commend them for a peaceful elections and the outcome. And the security agencies that did their work, in most cases, they were very professional, and they did their best to ensure that nothing got out of hand. So I would say, overall, it was a good one, very peaceful. When I say very, very peaceful, you will notice pockets of things here and there, but overall, it was a peaceful election. It was free, and it was fair. And based on where in the field where I was also part of the field operations of the campaign field operations committee. So I did a lot. I would say that it was also credible. There will be issues that we'll get into as we go along, but overall it was good, and to the glory of God. Today we have a president-elect, and Nigeria is still together in one piece. There were so many things, and tensions were up, that we have president-elect and members of the elected members of the National Assembly. It's something to be grateful to God and to commend everybody. So I'll say to God be the glory, and congratulations to Nigerians and all that worked hard for this to happen.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Chris Akomas, for your opening statement. Professor Abdullahi Shehu, let's have your take.
Well, let me join him in congratulating Nigerians and commending the efforts of the electoral body, the INEC, and the security agencies, and also the political parties, the way they acted. I think those who predicted that either A or B would win have won. In other words, Nigerians have won the election. We have seen the results. We have seen the processes. We also we appreciate and commend the role of the international observers who were here to give us support, and also their dispassionate assessment of the situation. However, there were so many issues that arose in the course of the election, beginning with the reasons that led to the postponement of the election in the first place, meaning that after this election, it would be necessary for Nigeria to sit down as a people to discuss some of the challenges that we have been facing all along in the course of our elections over the years. For example, look at the number of political parties that claim to have presented candidates for elections. 73 party flags have to appear on the ballot board, thus making it a little bit very cumbersome, and it does not look very, very good. I think we need to sit as a nation to discuss that. The other issue would be the challenges that INEC face. INEC, to my mind, has done its best because at least despite all the challenges, it was able to organize an election that is assessed to be relatively fair and free. So, but you expect that normally there will be matters arising, especially from the actors in the election. For those who won the election, they believe that the election was free and fair. For those who lost the election, they believe that there were massive irregularities that will need to be addressed. These are issues that, as Nigerians, we have to know that when we go for a contest, it is sure that somebody will emerge as a winner and another will emerge as a loser. So let us put the country first as our priority, sit down and reflect over it. It's a matter of 4 years. 4 years will come back and then we re-strategize and go back to the field again to see what we can do. But the challenge basically would be for the winners to understand that we have passed the stage of politics now. We need to go into governance. And this is where I feel that our direction, our discussion in the course of this should discuss what should be the expectations of Nigerians with respect to the dividends of democracy.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Shehu. Just before we get into the agenda-setting stage of the post-election phase of 2019, you have indicated, and Dr. Akomas has also said that as well, that there are issues that we need to deal with. I mean, the number of issues that are still there in the public domain, there's need for understanding of what the challenges are, of what the strong points have been, and then, of course, now get into the arena of setting the agenda. Let's bring in Nkiru, Lady Nkiru Celine Okoro. Lady Nkiru, tell us something. What is your observation with regard to what went on last Saturday and what the results have been?
Well, for us, that's meaning the women groups in Nigeria, coming from this fourth republic where we're coming from, I would give it to Nigerians that we've come a long way. We've matured, our democracy is deepening. It's not yet perfect, it's not yet uhuru, but we've moved progressively to where we are today. We were in the Nigerian Women's Situation Room. It wasn't the delays, the logistical issues. There were massive turnout of Nigerians, but there were a lot of people that were disenfranchised, you know, because of logistics, because of the problems with the card readers, because of even INEC delineation of the polling booths and the polling units. There was massive confusion, you know. There were a lot of issues to be dealt with, especially on that register. You see a polling unit where in Science Secondary School in Kuje, it was supposed to be 2 polling units, but it had like 20 voting points. So it was kind of chaotic. People were looking for their names, A, B, C, D, and there were no prior information as to how to assess your name on the ballot box. And I think on the polling unit you were going to vote in, and I think that accounted for the number of people that are aggregated, that the numbers are coming out. Because if everybody that had come out had opportunity to have casted their votes, we won't be talking about the number of voters being lower than 2015. Because for these elections, Nigerians were massively mobilized. Nigerians were determined to make their votes count, and they came out in their numbers, physically. The numbers, especially within FCT here, between the axis of Lube up to Gwagwalada, there were massive turnout of Nigerians. But that didn't translate in the data we're getting, in the voter turnout. So that is a serious concern.
All right. Unfortunately, we didn't ask INEC, any of its officials, to join us in this conversation, but it's a matter that we'll have to return to with regard to the arrangement on polling day. But Dr. Akomas, this appears to be a challenge that some voters faced in some of the jurisdictions, in some of the states. That people couldn't quite know where to go, exercise patience, and therefore cast their vote, went away jubilant, on the basis of having exercised that. But one issue that Dr. on a ballot, and the length is almost like from here to Mararaba, of the ballot, size of the ballot, and so on and so forth. People say that, look, that is the beauty of democracy. The more, the merrier. But we have seen the impact of that on the challenge of conducting an election in terms of printing your materials, having to get the ballot paper right, folding it right, avoiding void votes, and so on and so forth. What is your take on this? Did we have just too many numbers of persons seeking to become president of the Federal Republic?
Actually, that is a big challenge. It was something. I, for one, notwithstanding one's, knowledge of elections and what happens, I had to carefully look through to be able to print. Okay? So to know where my party is, and notwithstanding the education that was. So if it was that difficult for me, only God knows what happened. So it also contributed to the delays. In fact, we should commend INEC and the stakeholders that agreed to simultaneous accreditation and voting. If it had been the other way around, like what happened in 2015, where you accredit and wait, and we'll be talking of a far lesser number than we had. Yeah, the issue of voting point was also to make things move smoothly and faster, where you have over 500, registered voters and things like that. So you have voting points to make it faster. But some people were just talked to, I voted here, I have to vote here. But those that quickly got the message and said, check the other places, were able to move from one point to the other, because the points were created to reduce the long queues, to make it faster. But a number of us were complaining, because I received such calls. I voted here. Why are they asking me to go to the other? I said, it's still the same unit, but the voting points is to reduce this and make it faster. So, like Nkiru said, maybe we did not educate people enough. But I know that the issue of increasing voting points was something good. The intention was good, and it ought to have helped. But in some cases, due to the level of awareness and education, it did not help as much as intended. But in some areas, it did help also, where there was, especially in the rural areas, where everybody knows everyone. You come to the place. We had some units like that in my community, and people will come and say, okay, yes, you are in this unit, but your voting point is not here. Look, go to any of the other ones. And they quickly moved, and they would be asking people, I know I usually vote after you. Where is your name? So amongst them, they collaborated, and they were able to find their points. So it's something we have to improve upon. Each time there's an election, no matter how good and how well organized, there will always be issues. And when such issues come, our focus should be on how best to improve on what we have achieved. Look at an example, the spaceman democracy that we have all over the world, including the US. They're still discussing what happened in 2016 and how best to improve. So this election, you know, that we had, that number of presidential candidates, my brother, is something else. And at a point when the collation officers from states keep calling out names, and somebody said, come on, we know there are two major, like Prof said, there are two, leave the others now, just create a WhatsApp group or something, let them go and check their own figures there. Just tell us APCP, DP, so that we can finish this thing. Because it also, people complained of delay in the release or announcement of the results. But the law is the law. The process is the process. You have to follow through it. So that's an aspect that we must. Again, Prof, thank you, because you said something that is important, that the two major people that predicted, we are saying is either A or B that will win this. And it turned out such that both sides have won. And for me, the key issue here is that nobody goes into a contest with the hope of losing. People go into a contest with the hope of winning. And so when you don't, knowing fully well that one person will win or the others will lose, it will only be one person anyway. So knowing fully well that when the victory doesn't go one's way, of course, defeat is not something that you just savour easily. It takes a lot of courage and, you know, efforts to do that. But the beauty of it is that even in protesting, in saying, no, this is not what it should be, the process is still on, that legal aspect of it. And I commend the major opposition party, the candidate that came second, who said, I'll go to the court. And it's the process. We all know that the only time we've had that situation where someone accepted and congratulated the other and was able, because sometimes you will say you won't go to court and your party will say you must go to court. So, and was able to insist that they don't go to court was in 2015, and that was the presidential. It was this issue of several court issues and litigations that made the crafters of our laws and this come up with the issue of 180 days, 90 days, just to reduce the distance. I said it last time that in the past we have litany of, you know, legal cases that drag on and on. But it's reducing. I don't expect that it will just end like that. You mentioned things like someone mentioned the issue of how many cases INEC had to cope with before the elections. And even during the elections, people were still serving things on them. And you can imagine the weight of that. So cases, this improves so many things for us. As we go to court, it clarifies issues. It helps us also improve on the processes that we have. It helps us grow and make our legal system more robust. And it helps us understand each other better, because sometimes when the lawyers talk as learned people, we, the educated ones, may understand it the educated way, and they understand it the learned way. And at the end of the day, we must come to a point where we all agree that this is the way to go. A lot of work has to be done. We talk of logistics. My dear, just before we came in, I was telling Prof, I said, look, the enormous costs on us, the politicians and the parties, was huge. And then that I commend INEC that this time, nobody said, we will not be able to do this because of funding. They could manage within what they had to still deliver. That is something we must review and see how that system worked and how best to make things work. Because in the past, what would have happened is, we need more money, we cannot go, and then there will be more delays and all that. So let us accept the fact that no human endeavor, no human event is perfect. But as we go on, we learn, we improve on what we have, and we use that to create a more robust and more better, there are shortcomings. Those shortcomings are things we must begin to work on now. And good thing, Professor Yakubu, the chairman of INEC, said from tomorrow, we'll be preparing for 2023. And what that means is that we must review all the reports that have been submitted and then work on it and how best to. I think that is where we must all focus on. And let us, all of us, focus on the unity and progress of this country, on the brotherliness and love that we should improve on and increase on. And that is why we are, I, for one, I'm happy when Mr. President made a statement about inclusiveness, about the unity of the country, the way to go, and advised, members of the party, APC, to celebrate with, caution, not to go caution. And I say, in most cases, members of the party celebrate differently. But criminals take opportunities. They seize any opportunity that comes. Even in you say you are celebrating, they come into that, hijack it, and try to do something else. Of course, it will be attributed to them. There are also people that are waiting in the wings to use some things to cause trouble. Because I wouldn't see why anybody celebrating victory will go causing harm and, some kind of discomfort to the other person. Both those that voted and those that did not vote, we are all working towards the same thing. Prof said dividend of democracy. We seem to have overused that dividend of democracy. I say that we are all working towards the improvement, enhancement of our development, of our relationship, reciprocal relationship between each part of the country that makes all the components of this country one, and so that we can move ahead and improve on what we are doing. And for me, forgive me if I say the promise is to the next level, and we have all to work together, put hands together, so that we can go to the next level. Next level cannot be going down. It should be going up for something better.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris Akomas. I'm coming to you now, Professor Abdullahi Shehu. He has raised a lot of issues, and we all know that this election was a no-money political landscape where people didn't spend much money like previous elections. So how have we evolved politically in this country? Do you think in any way that this country has left behind the money politics that happened before?
Well, it's not true to say that huge amounts of money were not spent during this election. I think it's one of the most expensive, given the preliminary information and data that were released with respect to movement of funds in millions and in foreign currencies. Because if it is alleged that $150 million is being moved in cash, if you translate that into Naira, you can imagine how much amount of money has been involved. That is at the other level. The other aspect of it is that money was spent, as Dr. Okoma said. The political parties had to pay their agents, they had to cater for their logistics, they had to do so many things, and not doing it once, doing it all over again after the election was postponed. So to that extent, money was massively used, but whether it was used in the right direction or not, nobody has any evidence. One of the things I was looking at during my observation mission in Lagos was the issue of vote buying. And my empirical finding is that it's so difficult to establish the evidence of vote buying because of the way it happens. Is it before the person goes to vote, or is it after he has voted that he will now be settled? It's very difficult to establish. And the most difficult aspect of it is how to gather the evidence that if you want to prosecute somebody accused of vote buying or any financial inducement, what standard of proof do you establish to get that, and where do you get the evidence? Now, coming to your specific question of financing in politics, Ideally, there should be a limit on the expenditure for all the political parties, and the electoral body should be responsible for monitoring to ensure that they comply with the provision of the law. In fact, the Electoral Act provides that a report should be given indicating the financial ceiling limits of the political parties, but I don't think that has been strictly adhered to since we have been doing this.
Do you think it can work in this country, you know, trying to tell you that this is the amount of money you're supposed to spend during elections? Is it possible in Nigeria to adhere to that?
Well, nothing is impossible, because if the politicians are really interested in cleaning up politics, virtually everything is possible. They have to be very transparent in what they are doing. Of course, the reality is that it's very, very difficult, absolutely difficult to establish that. But at the minimum, we can see some modicum of transparency in what they are doing, and we'll be able to assess. I think, for example, when the president kept on saying that, please, people should not use government money for my own campaign. This is a very good signal to the people to know that, yes, it's the wrong thing to take government money to go and campaign. On the other hand, the sources of funding of the political parties, there is no open methodology for assessing the sources of funding for the political parties. In 2014, the PDP government at that time organized a huge fundraising dinner where a lot of money was raised for the campaign, but ultimately nobody got the exact figure that was raised and how it was used. So this is one of the challenges that we need to address, but I can tell you that it's going to be one of the most difficult. But we can learn from other jurisdictions. In a small country like Costa Rica, the issue of campaign financing was an issue, and they were able to find a solution, even though Costa Rica is relatively smaller than Nigeria. In America also, there are ways by which things can be moderated. Campaign finances have to be audited properly, and this auditing has to be made known, open to everybody, including the auditing of the accounts of the electoral body itself, because under the Electoral Act, it is supposed to give an account of what it spent during election and its general expenditure. So overall, it is very difficult to regulate campaign political party financing, but it is not impossible with a very strong commitment from the politicians themselves.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Shehu. Now, back again to Lady Nkiru Okoro. Well, still on the role of, shall we say, dirty money in the elections. Did we see a lot of evidence of that? Often referred to as see and buy, you know, following what happened in the off-cycle elections.
I'll quickly tell you, compared to Edo State and Osun State elections, I can authoritatively tell you no. Because this is one election that Nigerians were determined to be part of it. We were in the field, we saw a lot of people affirm, I'm not going to be disenfranchised. Whatever it takes for me to cast my vote, I'm going to cast my vote. I'm going to stay back here and defend my vote. Never in the years of monitoring from 1999 to date did we see that level of commitment. Nigerians came up in there. I mean, we went to more than 10 polling units. We didn't see money exchange hands because people were in their numbers, struggling, stampeding, looking for their names. So the issue of dirty money, for me, didn't apply. Or if it did apply, it wasn't visible. But I'll quickly note that our political parties have a lot of work to do in terms of party organizing and party structuring. Why do I say this? Way back in The Guardian, I was privileged to be in Germany, Gummersbach, and you could see that even long before election dates or electioneering, there are massive mobilization of candidates or participants or members of a political party at a deliberate measure. And belonging to a membership of a political party, it's not a free movement. It's something that costs you time, energy, and resources. So there is need for our political parties to go back to drawing board and decide what kind of party do I want to We had things like the Green Movement, the Social Democratic parties, and all that. So we need to define our sources of income. And then we did a research between 2016 and 2017 on who are those making key decisions for us. A federal government-funded research trying to disaggregate data both on women's participation in politics and the involvement of men. And we found out that after elections, everybody goes to sleep. The parties don't pay their party officials. You see things like the women leader, the chairman, they are not stipendal. How committed do you want them to be? So the process of now going into electioneering period makes it so expensive that they are forced, because for a work of 3 or 4 years, they get paid for a period of 2 or 3 months. That is not sustainable. And that is not encouraging. So if you engage people, there is need for them to be properly remunerated so that you can retain them. So, and I think all the parties in Nigeria are guilty of this. Perhaps that also informed the lack of citizens' education, awareness, and the parties have a lot of responsibility. And I think INEC, at the umpire, also reviewing and overseeing the activities of political parties. We've gotten to the level in our politics where we should begin to put checks and balances on how our parties are managed, from the ward level to the national level. And then the issue again of politics is local. We find that absolved because over the years, we've tried to argue on citizens and residency rights. Quite frankly, Nigeria is home to all of us. Every Nigerian should be privileged to be home and contest wherever the person is. This idea of you live in Abuja or you live in the cities, and when it's time for politicking, you start rushing back to your village, to your community, to your wards. The first reaction is that, oh, you remember we're here. It takes you a lot of resources for you to determine and convince them, oh, you didn't come to collect their votes and run back away to the city. So there's a whole lot of changing and reformation we need to do in our political process. What we currently have is too expensive. And it is too expensive, and it is a huge burden on the money bags and the influencers who really want to play active part in politics. So we have a lot of study, a lot of reviews, and a lot of reforms to do to get our political participation to be the ideal that meets minimum international standard. That is what we should go for.
Thank you very much, Lady Nkiru. Incidentally, last year, as the political parties splintered ahead of this year's general elections, we discussed political party management on this program on a number of occasions. We didn't have you on that program. But some of the points that you have raised now were also articulated by our guests. And we do hope that going forward, these are matters that they will factor in. The very relevant issues, Dr. Akumas, that Lady Nkiru has raised, that politicians keep a distance from their constituents, and then near election time, you know, it's like a stampede, and then you have all kinds of checkpoints and roadblocks that have been set up, so which tends also to escalate the cost of electioneering. Why is our politics the way it is, that it gets so expensive, near election time, and after elections, everybody just says, oh, we have won, so nothing else. Those who have lost, they fall into a coma.
Kingsley, this issue of funding of elections and political activities is something that we have discussed and keep on discussing over and over again. But I want to point out a saying, as expensive as elections. There is nothing as expensive as an election, no matter how organized. But what Prof said, which I key into, is in spending this money, it must be transparent. It has to be clear what are the sources of the income and how are they being spent, and who are involved. In party politics, you hear people talk about stakeholders. And when you come to meetings, they will tell you it's only when you stake that you hold.
As they used to say for those who were playing coupon in those days.
Exactly. Yes. It's only when you stake that you hold. So you cannot expect to come into a certain level of meetings when you have not staked enough. And people stake their own personal efforts. Like this election, Prof, I want to say, some movement of funding and monies may have happened, but I tell you, it has never been this tight and strict for people. We, stakeholders, normally the contestants and all that, will at a time like this say, okay, you are in charge of that place, you have this to work with. This time, nobody did that. You go and deliver your place. If you say you are a politician, go and deliver your place. So we all had to do our own thing and do. Now, talking about politicians, coming for elections and after that they go. People that do that suffer more. And that is why it's more expensive, the roadblocks and all that. Because the people wait for them. And when they come, they say, okay, you have come again. This time, this is what we do and how we do it. But if you are in tune with the people, when we talk about politics being local, it's not that it's only people that are indigenous of that area. It's that wherever you are, that locality, you should be part of the progress, what is happening, part of servicing the, environment. And if you do that, on election day, you don't go through the hassles and troubles that others go through. If you are within a community or a society and you participate, they know that you are free and clear. They know when it is time, you'll be shocked at the support you get. But those that come, the seasonal ones, when they come now, they give them bills. And sometimes, even after paying the bills, they will still do what they did. And when they...
Is it estimated is it estimated billing?
In fact, the bill... most times it's estimated. And when postponement happens, like that of 16th that happened, and they want to get one leg of goat or one... the people will say it's already slaughtered. You have to come again. Bring another one. So, you see, the issue is that when people work with the people throughout the period, they enjoy better support and better protection. Because for me, you say you are politicking, you are not with the people, you are exposing yourself to all sorts of dangers. And you have opportunity that God has given to you, you are occupying a position, whether in the executive or in the legislature, and you don't come back to the people. They don't see what you have done. People may think they don't, maybe they don't even know. They know, they wait for you. So when it's season, they'll say, okay, this is the harvest season. And since you have worked for 4 years and we must get all our own now. I'm aware that somebody somewhere called his community and said, please, I need to win my unit. You people should vote for me. And gave them all sorts of things, what he has spent and all that. And the people said, if you had spent something of this thing you have spent here, it would have been better. But good thing, we are going to vote. Let us vote. He did all the things, gave them some money. And the people went to vote and made sure that the man did not win. So he was angry and said, hey, I appealed to you and gave you some money. Where is my money? They returned the money in the same denomination, in the same, everything like that. So people, the awareness is increasing and it's growing. Now, talking of money politics, what has happened is that with this, with what Mr. President did, we have started the journey, the process. It's not easy, but we will get there. And that's where we must all work towards. I remember we were here discussing, the elections before this election. And Prof said something about improving on what we had and moving forward. That is important because it's when we go through an activity that you discover where you have done well and where you have to improve upon. We need to improve upon these areas. Good thing too, the elections in the past, vote buying was so visible, nobody, but today, Prof said, it's difficult to even say, I saw this and how. And she said the same thing. It means that people now know that is, and for the first time, for goodness, EFCC got involved in monitoring what happened. So during the balloting, people knew that somebody somewhere was monitoring and watching. So nobody wanted to get on the wrong side of the law. So these are things that happened. And let me just mention here as we go on that talking about the the number of voters that were accredited and that and collect.
Doctor, come on, we'll come to that.
Okay.
We'll come to that. That's of course another leg of our conversation. That will be after this short break. And then we will return to also take a look at the tweets that have been sent in by our viewers using our Twitter handle at NTAGMN.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo-Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency, calls on TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Cap Flu for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 Naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right. Bogus endorsements.
And Mike Anyakwo tweets, congratulations PMB on his declaration as the winner of the 2019 presidential elections. Any dissatisfied loser has the option of going to the court to contest results legally as stipulated in the Constitution. There must be no victor or vanquish for the interest of all Nigerians.
Ali Baba made tweets. Now, INEC deserves commendation for carrying out a successful and transparent exercise. There is always room for improvement. Our democracy is on the right track.
And Comrade Ali Ngala tweets, 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections is one of the best because it is free, credible, and transparent. Other candidates should accept the outcome of the election in good faith for the interest of the country.
Ibrahim Moduajid, despite the pockets of violence, the election has been largely free, fair, and credible. It has cost the nation lots of resources to produce the verdict. Therefore, the loser, in the spirit of sportsmanship, should please accept the outcome in good faith.
And Chris Nwagambo says, the question I want to ask is, a party that garnered only 8 votes from a state, what is it doing on the ballot paper? That's $1 million question,
Absolutely, Jumai. And of course, you know, there's also been concern as to the number of presidential candidates. INEC had indicated before the elections commenced that in some of the states where governorship elections will be taking place on the 9th of March, there are 29 states, that you have far fewer candidates on the ballot than you have on the presidential election. In other words, that we had more candidates seeking to become president of 198 million Nigerians then you have, those who are seeking to become governors. But there's a point that I would like us to address, because now we're getting to the governorship elections and State House of Assembly elections on the 9th of March. One feature of last Saturday's election had to do with the number of rejected votes, voided or cancelled. And this has been well over 1 million. Well over 1 million. If you add the population of Cape Verde and, Comoros, that is already over 1 million. Or you add that of Seychelles and so on and so forth. So that's the entire population of some 2 or 3 countries on the African continent will be the equivalent of the number of votes that were rejected or voided. And this is not to also talk about those persons who, on account of frustration, didn't eventually have access. Prof, how do we deconstruct this and then seek to reconstruct it and ensure that there is a reduction? Because the figure we are having for 2019 in the presidential election is far higher than what we had in 2015.
You're right. But even before we address the issue of voided votes, we should look at the issue of disenfranchised Nigerians. Looking at the statistics, it was given that Kano State had about 6 million voters. Less than 2 million actually came out to vote or were accredited to vote. Lagos had about 5 million, less than 2 million came out. So on general, there is a general apathy across the board. We will need to look at the root cause of this general apathy. In my view, there is a little bit of lack of trust in the process, in the whole system. Some people believe that, well, why do I need to waste my time? After all, the outcome of the election has been predetermined. Predetermined by who? God knows. Secondly, well, okay, looking at what INEC is doing, how are we sure that we can trust INEC to do the right thing, and therefore people are not going out to exercise their franchise, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is one of the national issues that we will need to sit down and address and look at the institutional arrangements that will build confidence in the electorate to really go and vote. Let them vote for whoever they want to vote for. Now, coming to the issue of voided votes, this is really an issue of concern. But it is, well, the many party symbols on the ballot box, on the ballot paper, may have contributed to some extent. But also, perhaps, some people wanted to do certain things in a rush. And you know, when you are trying to do something irregular in a rush, the tendency is that you'll make a lot of mistakes, and therefore there will be a lot of mistakes, and so some votes will be voided. Maybe in some places, some people wanted to rig the election, and maybe they rigged more than the number of accredited voters, and therefore they had to void some votes. So this is a problem that has to be looked at within the framework of the entire electoral process. We should begin to think of how really we are going to improve the system in such a way that the loopholes that people expect, imagine this one. So these are all challenges that we need to sit down as a country to look at. Unfortunately, our experience has shown that over the years, the government, let me say governments have not been really committed to reforming the electoral system. In 2007, President Yar'Adua remorsefully confessed that the election was flawed. And he took decisive steps to improve the electoral system by setting up a credible panel which recommended very far-reaching measures that would have improved the system. The politicians jettisoned the report. Nothing happened with that report. In 2011, we had the widest violence Nigeria had ever experienced in election. President Jonathan set up the Lemu panel that came out with also very far-reaching recommendations, which were not implemented. Now, after 2015, that was acclaimed or adjudged to be the most credible, President Buhari set up the Ken Nnamani panel that also made recommendations. What happened to all these recommendations? Are we really committed to improving the system? Now, some steps were taken also to amend the Electoral Act which did not succeed. Obviously, the process of improving our electoral system should begin today, immediately. Once a new government is sworn in the next 2 years, something should be done. Otherwise, the political calculation will be that if I implement this recommendation, it's going to affect my chances or the chances of my party to do X, A, B, and C. So, as a matter of fact, the politicians have to demonstrate commitment that they are interested in improving the electoral system for the better, for themselves and for Nigerians.
All right, Professor Shehu, thank you very much. Some of the aspects of the Waste panel on electoral reform, some of them have been implemented, but not yet, not wholesale.
Not the consequential aspects.
Yeah, some of those very critical ones that are still hanging. Lady Nkiru Okoro, give us your own perspective on how it turned out that we have over 1 million void and cancelled votes. Just over 1 million. As I said, you can relate that to the population size of 2 or 3 countries on the African continent.
Yeah, for me, it's quite clear, and it's the use of one data. In the course of this election, I'm privileged to relate with the NDI, IAGA, PVT process. And it clearly states, with the voter register that we're using, dates back to 1999. And then you ask INEC, between 1999 and today, millions of people that are in that register have lost their lives. They ought not to be there. How much cleaning has INEC done to delist those who are deceased in our register? They tell you that the process of delisting anybody is so cumbersome. You have to get a court affidavit, you have to get a death certificate, and a lot of Nigerians are not interested in. And then the whole politics of, oh, you've delisted the Igbos, or you delisted the Muslims, or you delisted the Yorubas and all that theaters had to be contended. But whether we like it or not, if a voter is deceased and ought not to be in the register. So the onus is on INEC to begin to delist those who are known to be deceased in our register.
INEC tried to do that sometime last year, and I think there were reports in that regard. Yes, there were. And they were delisting, persons who had, of course, been confirmed to have passed. Yes, to have passed. But we're talking now about spoiled votes, or votes that were just rejected.
I now go back to votes on how to fingerprint. I mean, the issue of using the index finger just came like 2 or 3 weeks to election. For a country that is 198 million people, and you use 3 weeks to educate them on using the index finger. No, we are not doing justice to our responsibilities as a political party, as a people. And I think now we should use the remaining 8 or 9 days to the next election, before March 9th election. Let every party that has a candidate that is contesting in this election go back and educate their voters on how to thumbprint, so that will reduce. Voter education is the clear panacea to avoided votes. People need to be educated.
Exactly.
Yeah, Juma, yes. I'm wondering, Dr. Chris Akomas, who were right on the field, part of the challenge that has arisen from the perspective of commentators, according to them, is the somewhat unclear rules for INEC officials or the electoral officials to cancel voting at particular centers. In some units, tens of units were just cancelled virtually peremptorily. And plus the voided votes, this, of course, tended to have aggravated the incidence of disenfranchisement. What's your take on this?
Thank you. First of all, let me comment on the number of voided or cancelled votes. You said over so figure. And then using the countries, that have smaller populations. I think we have to relate the cancelled votes with the number of votes that voters that participated during the elections. Otherwise, we won't get a clear picture of it. I want us to remember that the INEC, the rules for these elections, they came up with a draft. They invited the stakeholders, the political parties and everybody, presented it, and it was, reviewed and reviewed, and at the end of the day, the policies, the rules were agreed upon. And part of that is that if you in any unit refuses to use the smart card reader, that place will be voided. That's one. Two, we have, given our experiences in the past, that if any violence occurs in any place, that place will also be cancelled because you can never vouch for what happens after that violence. Three, if people are caught openly campaigning or vote buying, it will. So there are several reasons to void vote. Yes, it's high, but then the rules have been set. It's one thing to set a rule. It's another thing for the people to comply with it. And talking about the voter education and all that comes to play. But then, if we even talk about the turnout, I was speaking on that. Yes. As political parties, as all the stakeholders, what was our language to the people? Did we give them confidence and hope that when they come out to vote, they will vote in safety and go back in safety? What did we say? What were we telling our party members, the youths? Because if you think you are telling them something in secret, they are going to tell their people, this is it, this is it. Don't go out so that you won't hurt yourself. And then what strategies did we adopt? Some political parties may have adopted the strategy of scaring voters away from certain areas so that they can have, some control. And when you do that, it will affect things. And when that happens, you come to a unit that is supposed to have maybe 350 that have 350 registered voters. And what you see on the queue is a total of 50 persons or thereabout. Then the people will vote. At the end of the day, somebody somewhere tries to outsmart, to be too smart. And the monitoring people, the observers and others are watching. They begin to send their messages and escalate. When it's cancelled, it's cancelled. So that is why we must look at what has happened. How did we even come to agree and accept these rules? It was because of our previous experiences. Now that we have tried it, and how do we make sure that these things will not happen again? It has happened. It's a serious matter, and we have to do something about it. And then those that have been disenfranchised, as we talked about, was it fully intentional or out of their own volition to say, let me just sit and be safe instead of coming out? Some people voted. I know someone who said, I must vote. This is my first time of voting. I'm going to vote. So they made sure that they voted. But those that have been voting, some even thought, some did not even appreciate the fact of this simultaneous accreditation and voting. Some thought it was going to be like you accredit and wait, and so they decided not to. So a lot of things are involved, and we have to work together. Together, this is not a question of party, but it's for Nigeria, for our unity and for our progress. We all have to work together to improve on this system. But yes, is it something that we must all be concerned about? Yes, we must be, because the number is high.
You talked about trust earlier while you were responding to Kisley's question. And is that people now go out to vote, people they want? Is that what happened in the 2019 elections, where you saw the tumbling of some political juggernauts losing elections, shocking results, actually? So let's look at the National Assembly. How is it going to play out with different people coming in, others going? Are we going to see a more vibrant National Assembly?
More vibrant National Assembly, I expect that. Because I don't think any meaningful and patriotic citizen of this country will be happy to see a semblance of what has happened in the past 3 years, 9 months. with the National Assembly. We want something better. We want improvement. We want cohesion. We want everybody to focus on the national interest. Look, this election is something. Look at the kind of people that couldn't make it back. It's something. I hope we are learning from it. Like Prof said, most people, and I advise people, my fellow politicians and all that, to learn from what has happened. Can you imagine a sitting governor losing senatorial seat, sitting in this country, in the way and manner that it happened, and that it happened only his own senatorial zone? So, and many others, people will consider, in the words of the late K. Omba, the men of Timber and Caliber, the juggernauts in politics, that they lost in their own place. And where you did not even expect people to win, they won. Yes. And there are so many names. Now people are asking, who is that? Which name? Who won? What is the name of? And that is, we are evolving. I have always said that democracy is an interesting thing. The system is self-cleansing and but it takes time to get there. And I think we are evolving and evolving well. So that issue of trust, people are now, they're no longer looking at political parties these days. They are looking at the face. Is that Kingsley? Okay, we know him. He can do this. Well, where is his own party? They put. Okay.
Nobody voted for me this time.
No, I use because if I use myself now, or Prof, and the antecedents, and so they vote. And you will see people from the other parties, even as they will say, I am going to vote for the other person because I believe he is going to, do more than. So that issue of trust is important, and the awareness is going. But we must go back to dance. The dance steps that we make must be the right ones so that we don't discourage our people from voting.
All right, Professor Shehu.
Briefly.
As brief as you can possibly be.
I will say sharp, sharp.
Very good. Excellent. Well, taking from the point he has said, you see, nobody predicted the outcome of the 7th Assembly, for example, or 8th Assembly, that turned out to be something else. It was majority APC in the National Assembly, but it did not play out like a one consolidated party. The same thing has come out now. The report I am reading is that about 10% of them have criminal charges or are under investigation. And they are also heavyweights in their own constituencies. And it looks like the outcome has also given a majority to the APC. So we will look and see how they manage this victory that has been given to them at the executive and the legislative arms of government, and let there be a united government that will really develop programs that will bring the support that Nigerians deserve in a democratic setup. Finally, there must be constructive engagement for reforms of our electoral system. Because if we don't get it right, having conducted 6 major presidential elections now, I think that Nigerians will need to sit down, look at where things have worked and where things have not worked, and try to amend without bringing the selfish and personal interest into play.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. On that note, we have to round up. Though time is not on our side, we would have talked more. We thank you so much, Professor Abdullahi Shehu, former Director General, Intergovernment Action Against Money Laundering in West Africa. It's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. We also thank Dr. Chris Akomas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, an active politician. Thank you so much for coming. And Lady Nkiru Celine Okoro, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Though we didn't talk about the women perspective, actually.
I'm surprised. They're looking and watching. Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming. She is a gender and policy analyst for Women's Situation Room in Nigeria, powered by Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Thank you so much for coming. Sports Update is next.